Hello and welcome to a new episode of Crystal Ballers. We got this date 9/11, and we're going to be going over the NFL recap from week one, overreactions, underreactions. We're going to hit up talk about some of the most exciting games of the week, and we're going to cover some of your rankings. Ask questions in the chat. If we see something we want to talk about, we will address it. We're going to go over the primetime season records, and we're going to hit it all up. We're going to get some best bets for the week, and finally our crystal ball busts and crystal ball picks. But to kick us off, let's go ahead and get started with some overreactions, underreactions. Eric, what do you got?
Travis Kelce sticks out to me. Is he washed? Is he dusty? Or is he still going to be able to pull through as a type tight end this year? Week one, just 3 catches on 4 targets. Noah Gray had the same amount of catches as Travis Kelce. The backup tight end has the same amount of catches as the starting tight end. Rob Gronkowski retired in 2019, 4 years ago, and Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski are the same age. He's about to turn 35 in about a month or two. In the past, the offense always went through Travis Kelce. He was the offense. Last year, the receivers couldn't catch anything. Everything was going through Travis Kelce. But now the receivers are more of the focal point, and they're catching some balls. Rashee Rice is the target leader in town. 9 targets this week. Xavier Worthy looks like he could be the rookie of the year with 1 rushing touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown, and he should have had 2 receiving touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes barely missed him, barely overthrew him. I think Travis Kelce is going to have some games, but they're going to be in the touchdown department. I don't think he's going to be able to pull it off for volume this year. I think where you drafted him in fantasy football, he was overdrafted, and I think he's going to underperform this season. Yeah. But a player that I think is going to overperform this season is Cooper Kupp. Marcus, what do you think of Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, for me, Cooper Kupp, it's going back to a few years ago. He's, for me, instantly back to being a top 3 wide receiver. Last week when Puka Nacua got hurt, he increased to a 52% target share, 7.48 Rams were 3rd highest passing rate over expected. All of these things are pointing to Cooper Kupp is just going to light the world on fire now. Expecting 15 to 20 targets a game is not out of the realm of possibility for Kupp. He's just going to go right back to being the Triple Crown winner. I think I would probably trade anybody away for him except Tyreek Hill and Lamb. Anybody else, I would be trying to trade away to get Kupp. I think he's just set up to smash. Even when Puka comes back, he probably won't be 100%. I think Cooper Kupp is back and ready to rock.
Yeah, I agree with you, Marcus. I think Cooper Kupp's in for a terrific season, especially while Puka is out. Not sure what happens when he comes back. For me, though, I'm thinking about Dalton Kincaid. He's a guy that I think all of us were really high on going, through our drafts. And he really disappointed week one with just 1 catch for 11 yards. But I'm not ready to give up on the guy yet. In this game, Josh Allen only attempted 23 passes. Last year, he attempted 34 per game on average. Also, Dalton Kincaid played 84% of the snaps. We only saw numbers from him that high as far as snap share goes while Dawson Knox was out. So when he's playing this number of snaps, he's producing. So that's why I have confidence in Kincaid. And if you need anything else, Travis Kelce in 2018, week 1 catch, 6 yards. He ended the season with 103 catches for 1,300 yards.
I hope you're right about that. I have a lot of Dalton Kincaid. The guy who really jumped out to me was Joe Mixon in his performance in week 1. He had 33 touches, more than 150 yards, and he didn't have any big runs. I mean, he just consistently was knocking out 5-6 yards every time he got it. And he's not competing with anybody for touches. He got the load, as you can tell with the 33 carries. We know from past years he's also he's a capable pass catcher. We didn't see a whole lot of that Sunday, but he has that capability, and we could tell with Cincy that they were really missing him.
Yeah, I think if you got Joe Mixon, you got a real deal in the draft because he looks like a monster bow cow for Houston.
Hey fellas, just gonna chime in here, a little chimaroo from the back line. But with Nakua out, do we like anyone else on that Rams roster? I mean, obviously Kupp's going to get the bulk of the workload, but is anybody else you guys are thinking?
I think Tyler Johnson's interesting. He had that really nice, like 50-something yard catch. So in a couple deep leagues, I added him this week because surely they're going to, utilize somebody else, and he at least seems talented enough to kind of handle that number 2 role.
No, that sounds good.
And
I like Parkinson as well, the tight end. He got a little bit of volume, and I think he'll get a little more targets now with more targets to go around if Cooper Kupp does not hog all of the targets.
And I burnt through some valuable fab on Demarcus Robinson as well. He had a good run last season, and I think he could benefit from.
I did it as well.
Situation.
I second that. And if you look back at some of the stats from the previous week, I think Stafford had the most passing attempts, 49. If that sounds right to everybody, I think Lamar was up there.
Yeah,
too, but obviously they're going to throw the ball.
So that's an interesting game that I've been that I'm really looking forward to watching, because so on the other side of the ball you have the Arizona Cardinals, where we had a lot of disappointments with McBride and Harrison and even Tyler didn't look good either. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they bounce back. And both these teams lost close games last week, and one of them is going to have to fall to 0-2. So it's also an important real life game as well. Is there any other interesting games that you guys are looking forward to, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, the Bills are going up against the Dolphins. I think this is going to be one of the most exciting games of the week. Josh Allen looked like an absolute monster. 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. I want to see how Dalton Kincaid bounces back, because I got a lot of Dalton Kincaid, and I'm not ready to quite hit the panic button there. I want to see a bounce back. Keon Coleman, the rookie, 4 catches, 51 yards. I thought that was pretty good. I tip of the cap to the guy. I kind of had him as underperforming this year, and he's getting some targets, so it's good to see that. And James Cook to look really good. 19 rush attempts, 3 catches. He's getting a lot of the work. I give Ray Davis a little bit of a handcuff potential there, because if something happens to James Cook, I think Ray Davis might get a little bit of action. But the Dolphins, going up against the Dolphins and all the speed they got, Devon Achane looked really good. 10 rush attempts, 7 targets, 17 total touches for the guy. That's better than he was getting last year. So if he sticks with that volume, he could be really good this year. I know he's got a little bit of an injury now, but if he plays, I think, he's always dangerous when he gets the ball. And Tyreek gets arrested on the way to the stadium. This game's at home as well. I think maybe the police had odds on the other team, and the only way they could win is if they got Tyreek out of the game. Maybe that's the case, but he blew up 29 DraftKings points. I think that whenever you're going against Tyreek Hill, it's exciting to watch. I would say this is probably the most exciting game of the week for me to watch. But Marcus, what do you want to see this week? What game stands out to you?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Bengals Chiefs, that 4:30 slot on Sunday. I want to see the best QB alive, Mahomes, at the place that people were starting to call Burrowhead. I want to see if the Bengals, if week 1 was a mirage and that's not really them, or if the Bengals are going to be toast this year. People were drafting Burrow to be their quarterback, going as high as 7th overall from the QBs. People were drafting Jamar Chase as a top 5 wide receiver. The running back situation, I think, is a little bit different than what people were thinking the first week. Moss was beating out Brown when Brown was being the younger guy and getting all the hype and being drafted higher. So those are the things that I'm really interested in. And of course, on the Chiefs side of the ball, I want to see what will happen again. Will Rice get all the targets? Will Hollywood Brown come back? And if he does, how does that change things? Does Xavier Worthy excite again? Just so much fun and potential there. If the Bengals please show up this week, because I really want a good game.
Marcus, what are you thinking about the Burrow lingering hand injury? Is that he was dealing with it in the preseason? You could tell on the sideline.
Yeah, it definitely was. It is something that I'm worried about. I didn't draft a lot of Bengals this year. I didn't draft a lot of Burrow or Chase, maybe a few shares of Brown, even took Moss once. So the Bengals scare me a little bit. And if Burrow is still dealing with any type of hand injury at all, it's going to affect, and it's going to show. I think it showed in week 1. Now, New England might have a really good defense. So we have to give New England, I think, some credit.
Possible.
But yeah, I think we're going to quickly see if the Bengals are going to be in big trouble, because if you start 0-2, I think they say the odds are like less than 10% that you make the playoffs. And I think a lot of people were expecting the Bengals to bounce back and make the playoffs this year, and they could be staring at 0-2, and it's just going to be a very intriguing game Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I think the Bengals might also be dealing with some rust because basically none of them played in the preseason. The game I'm looking forward to is the game with the highest over/under, and that is the Lions and the Bucks. Now, I might be a little biased because I did watch the Washington Tampa Bay game on Sunday and watched Baker Mayfield play lights out, Mike Evans play lights out, Chris Godwin play lights out. That might just be because who they're playing against, but they looked really good. And now they're going to play against a Detroit team that also looked really good. I think we have, in my estimation, both Tampa Bay receivers top 15, Amon-Ra St. Brown's top 5, and I'm really big on Jameson Williams. We're going to talk about more about him later on. And of course, you got Sam Laporta. So much fantasy goodness in this one game. It's going to be a good one. And of course, the running backs too.
Zach, do you think that Baker's for real, or you think this is a fluke thing? Or, I mean, obviously you feel like his career has seen a resurgence in the last 2 years, but is it legit? Or
I've never really been a big believer in Baker Mayfield, but I've also always thought that pocket passers don't hit their prime until their 30s, and a lot of times teams give up on guys too soon. So we might just be seeing kind of a late breakout for Baker Mayfield.
He's got that dog in him, He's got that dog.
He got that dog in him. So
does he get to play Washington every week?
That would certainly help. I think that would probably put him in the MVP race.
Whoever plays Washington has that dog in them.
That seems to be
Daniel
that way.
Jones.
Except Daniel Jones, so I don't know about him.
Honestly, the same with whoever plays the Panthers too. Whoever plays the Panthers, the Saints look like one of the best teams all time this weekend.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to something that we haven't done yet on this show, and that is looking at weekly rankings. So let's take a look at how this looks.
Take a look. All right.
Zach, is there somebody standing out for you?
So, well, first we're going to take a look at quarterbacks. And I believe Eric is pretty low on Joe Burrow, who we've kind of talked about. What do you got for us on Joe Burrow, Eric?
Yeah, I want no part of Joe Burrow. I did not draft him in seasonal leagues. I don't have him in dynasty leagues anymore. He's moving way down my dynasty rankings, way down my regular rankings, definitely down my weekly rankings. They looked absolutely terrible last week. 164 passing yards. They have no rushing game. So the offense has to go through Joe Burrow. He's a little banged up. Chase wasn't playing in the beginning. It was just, I don't think they quite have the cohesion. So I'm not ready to, bet on Joe Burrow or put him in my starting lineup until he at least proves it to me for a week. So right now he's on the bench. He's going to stay there. He's not somebody that I want to be starting. I have him where I got my rankings, but I will not be moving him up until he proves to me that he deserves to be moved up, because I believe he only had about 8 fantasy points in DraftKings last week, and that's nobody you want to have in your quarterback spot.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I'm curious though. You say you're moving him down dynasty. Is that all because of the hand injury, or is that something else?
Well, there's just a lot of good quarterbacks. I mean, a lot of these rookie quarterbacks look really good. A lot of the quarterbacks last year look pretty good. And for me, the quarterbacks I want to have in dynasty usually have a little more mobility than he has, because I think they have a little more upside. For him to hit his peak, he needs to have a 4 or 5 touchdown game. And we've seen these younger quarterbacks; they have a 2 rushing touchdown game, and they've already passed him. So I look more towards the Konami code type quarterbacks than a Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I think with the injuries Burrow's had, running the football is kind of out of his game now. All right, so let's take a look at running backs. Marcus, I believe you are pretty high on Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I think he's a borderline top 5 running back this week, assuming Chris McCaffrey does not suit up for week 2, which it sounds like they are going to probably keep him out of the game. If we saw what he did on Monday night, they use him just like CMC. He crushed in what was supposed to be a difficult matchup against the Jets. He should have really had multiple touchdowns in that game, so it could have been even better. If anybody went out and used a bunch of fab on him, or just happened to have a high waiver priority and got Jordan Mason, in my opinion, you're going to have, like I said, a borderline top 5 running back. He's just, I think, set up to do really well in that offense. And people might be start to think, how great is Christian McCaffrey? I'm probably going a little too far there, but I just think that Jordan Mason is just going to do this all over again, barring anything crazy where San Fran is trailing by multiple scores, which I don't think is going to happen. I think game script, everything is going to be set up for Jordan Mason to have maybe 150 total yards and multiple touchdowns like he could have easily had on a Monday night.
And Marcus, do you think this
Well-
might be because of like the Madden curse with Christian McCaffrey on the cover? They
They're-
say now he's injured right away week 1. Jordan Mason came out that he said he knew he was starting since Friday, but all the rest of us did not know that, but somehow they knew that. What do you think about the Madden curse? Is that playing out?
Yeah. I don't know if I can believe it or not, because it does sound like McCaffrey will eventually play. They said if it was a playoff game, he would have been out there. Which then makes me
But
think
can you
like,
trust anything they say at this
yeah,
point?
probably not, right? To me, their playoffs don't start till January. So do they keep him out till January? I doubt it. We have heard about what have they been calling it, Achilles tendonitis. I feel like if you're a running back that's a little bit older, you probably need your Achilles. So I don't know if that's all. These are all very negative signs, I think, for McCaffrey. Hopefully you backed him up and handcuffed him with Jordan Mason. If you're a McCaffrey owner or didn't have Mason, you were probably feeling a little bamboozled. I feel a little bad for Jordan Mason because in the post-game interview on the field, he was like, hey, I knew I was starting since Friday. And then he had to retract that. I'm assuming the coaches, staff, everybody told him, like, you can't say stuff like that. So in the post-game interview, asked him the same question. He's like, man, I just don't like talking to the media because of this stuff like this.
Yeah, you
So
can say some of those things.
I feel bad for Jordan because he just had a career night, and then he's got this thing that kind of cloud hovering over his head now of like, what am I allowed to say and can't say? So,
Well, he should have just referred to Marshawn Lynch and did the old "I'm only here so don't get fined."
that's what he tried to do in the actual press game or post game press conference. So just kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah, I certainly agree, and I definitely hope you're right about Jordan Mason as somebody who had him backing up McCaffrey in our primary league.
Smart move. Yeah.
I will say even Christian McCaffrey did not touch the ball 29 times in the game last year, all the way until the Super Bowl. So Jordan Mason's got exceptional usage Monday night, and I'm hoping that means they're not afraid to run him into the ground because McCaffrey's coming back soon.
That's exactly what I think is going to happen. Is
week 3
Mason's
against the
gonna get it.
Rams. I think that's a pretty sweet spot for McCaffrey coming back, but we'll see. Going back to running back rankings, Marty, I think you had another guy that you're pretty big on this week.
Well, it's actually not that big on.
Sorry.
And it's Achane. Nothing
I
against
mixed up with
Achane,
Henry.
but I'm just a little concerned with the injury. It did not look good. He hasn't practiced all week, and I think there's a pretty decent chance that he doesn't even suit up for the game. But if he does, I'm just very skeptical that he's going to get his full allotment of touches. Like Mitch said earlier, he got 17 last week. I just don't see that happening this week on a short week after an injury. I'm just concerned there.
Are you concerned about the entire running game in Miami? If Achane doesnn't play, will you want somebody else? Or
don't they have a whole slew of guys in there?
Yeah, it could be Jalen Wright's.
Yes, it could. If Achane
I like Jalen Wright. He's an explosive runner, and I also think that Mostert could come back. I mean,
well, he's been ruled out, I think, right?
Oh, he has been ruled out. Okay, so then it's.
I saw that today.
Wright's backfield to lose then. What about Jeff Wilson?
Jeff Wilson got some carries last week. So I really hope we see if Achane's out. I do hope we see some Jalen Wright because he's definitely a fun player, and that could be entertaining. For me, I'm going back to my must-watch game of the week. Looking at wide receiver rankings here, and I'm really big on Jameson Williams. He had his breakout game Sunday night with 134 yards, and that was on 9 targets and 85% snaps. Even without that 52-yard touchdown that he had, he still would have had 82 total yards and good for a little over 10 fantasy points in like Yahoo standard leagues. So I think he is here to stay. And one player that I compare him to talent-wise and situation-wise is Jalen Waddle. He's really fast and dynamic, playing across from, an elite #1 guy in Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I think I'd like to see a few more weeks like this before I move him all the way up to where I have Jalen Waddle. But I think in a league where you're starting 3 wide receivers, I'm going to try to get Jameson Williams in there.
All right. Well, I like that. Moving on now to looking at some of our primetime game Pickem. Taking a look back at last week. Eric and Zach starting out strong with a perfect 4-0. I wouldn't say there was any upsets last week, so maybe not too bold. Marty 3-1. I tried to take a little bit more of a bold approach going with the Jets and the Packers. They didn't come through for me, so starting off a little behind at 2-2. But moving on to the primetime games, we just talked about it Thursday night, Bills and Dolphins. For me, I'm going to take the Bills. Who do you guys got?
Well, I'm taking the Bills too. Just do not trust the Dolphins against any sort of confident team.
Yeah, for me, the Bills might have a real life superhero on the team with Josh Allen at quarterback, but the Miami Dolphins have the unarrestable Tyreek Hill. The police tried to rig the last game and arrest him. This game's at home. They might try it again. So Jason, cue the music. Akon, locked up, can't let me out.
I don't know if I can do it that quick. The audio part at least.
Up. Okay, I'm taking Miami Dolphins and Tyreek Hill over the Bills.
I don't normally pick them, but I'm going to be with Eric on this one too. I think everyone. I am way bigger on Tua than most people. That team, until I think otherwise, they're going to just roll over people.
Funny enough, the Dolphins are the favorites. Yeah.
I did see that. Very interesting. Marty, do you have a different opinion on this game?
Marty, you better not be muting yourself. I can tell you're muted right now.
All right, give me the Bills. I am on the Bills.
All righty, perfect.
You'd have skipped him.
Sorry about that. Moving on to
I think
Sunday.
we should dock him a win in the standings.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Moving on to the Sunday night game, I think it's going to be an exciting one. Caleb Williams, is he going to have a bounce back game with the Bears, or is he going to be missing a lot of his playmakers versus the Texans and that very fun offense? So for me, I'm going to go with the Texans, who are favored. Zach, who do you got?
Any team that gets to play Will Levis every week is going to look pretty good.
That was one of the most embarrassing. It was a bad pick at the end. That was really bad.
Yeah,
I was on the fence about going to the game, but they're way too expensive. They're charging like $300 to get into Houston to see the worst possible seats. But I'm on the Bears though. I think there could be some good odds there. And to back up what Eric said, they do have 9 out of 11 returning starters. I think that's more than most teams would probably have. I haven't looked it up, but with all the stuff that goes on, I mean, I know that's it's pretty unusual.
yes, for certain. And then moving on to the Monday night game. This might have been my second most intriguing game. I want to see what is up with the Atlanta Falcons. They're traveling to Philadelphia this week. Eagles looked great. They're getting a little mini bye, almost getting to play in Friday in Brazil, and now a few extra days to rest. I want to know with the Falcons and Kirk Cousins, is he cooked? Are we going to see Penix soon? If they start 0-2, I think the chants are going to be very loud, something we talked about in the preseason this year. For me, I'm going to go with the Eagles. Eric, who do you got?
Yeah, the Eagles, I think, are going to walk all over the Falcons. Kirk Cousins has absolutely no mobility. He is playing like a statue back there, not driving off his back foot, nothing. I told you guys before, mark my words, we will see Michael Penix Jr. in this offense. And when we do, this is going to be one of the top offenses in the league because he is a great facilitator of the ball, and he has both of his Achilles that are still intact. He is still mobile. So I do think we're going to see Michael Penix Jr., and they will be good at that point. But right now, they got Kirk Cousins. Give me the Eagles over the Falcons.
I, too, will take the Philadelphia Eagles, but I'm not ready to give up on Kirk Cousins yet. I think he's going to bring a little more fight this week against the Eagles, and it'll be a high-scoring game. But Eagles come out on top.
And I'm on the Eagles as well.
Awesome. Great. Well, we'll continue to track that and see who our Pickem champion is at the end of the season. Moving along, though, some best bets. Wasn't our best start to the year. I think just a lot of people probably suffered the week one with offenses just struggling in general. Marty came through with us, though, with his Stafford plus 300 passing yards to save a little bit for us. But moving on to this week, taking a look at all the bets, something that stuck out to me is Jaden Daniels, anytime touchdown over on FanDuel is minus 105, basically 50-50 if they're going to say Jaden Daniels is going to have a rushing touchdown. The Giants are bad at giving up rushing touchdowns for the last year, even the first game this year. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in garbage time last week. I think Jaden Daniels is set up for a very big week. And I like the odds of him having basically a 50-50 shot to get into the end zone. I just think he'll either get one in at the goal line, or he might be inside the red zone, make a play with his legs, and start to put the league on notice. So for me, Jaden Daniels, anytime touchdown, minus 105, book it.
And I don't see any reason why you couldn't have like a 75-yard touchdown either.
He easily could against the Giants.
Yeah, I'm all for it. For me, I'm actually going to place a bet against CJ Stroud. I think he'll have a good real life day. I think the Texans will win this game relatively easy. And like Eric mentioned earlier, the Bears do have a great defense, but the problem is that their offense is not very good. And I don't expect them. I expect the Texans to control the game. And so my bet is going to be that Stroud does not get more than 254.5 yards. I found that at plus 135 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I just don't think it's going to be necessary for him to throw the ball enough to get to that amount of yards. I think we're going to see Joe Mixon pounding the ball all day.
I looked through all the bets, and I think the best bet of the week is Cooper Kupp over 7.5 catches. He had 21 targets last week, 14 catches, and that's with Puka Nacua in part of the game. Puka Nacua is now out. He's got a sprained PCL. He's on injured reserve. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. I would expect him to be out even longer than that. So I don't see a world where Cooper Kupp does not hit the over on 7.5 catches. So let's smash the over and make some money. Vegas will probably set the over next week at 9.5, and let's smash it again. And then the offense runs through Cooper Kupp. Let's keep it up. Let's make the bet.
You say you don't see a world where he doesn't get at least 8 catches. What about the world where Dalton Kincaid only got 1?
I don't see a world in this new world, in this realm we're in, where the offense goes through Cooper Kupp. Okay, last week the offense was supposed to go through Dalton Kincaid. It did not. It's not gonna. It looks like it's all over the place. It's Josh Allen, Superman, stealing touchdowns. He's getting to whoever's open, but he wasn't looking for his tight end. Cooper Kupp's gonna get all the targets. Matthew Stafford is not rushing for 2 touchdowns. Okay, he's not going to take those rush attempts out of the offense. He is the check down machine. They run screens to Cooper Kupp. He's going to get his catches. I don't see a world now where Cooper Kupp does not hit the smash button.
No, I agree. I think that's a really good bet. He's going
Plus
back
money.
to 2021 usage. Yeah, exactly. My best bet of the week is going back to that Atlanta Falcons offense. Kyle Pitts, 50 or more yards at plus 165 on DraftKings. Kyle Pitts is a little disappointing. He's one of my breakout players this season. Only had 28 yards last week. 3 targets, 3 catches. He did get in the end zone. But for me, I'm thinking Kirk Cousins can't play any worse than he did last week. He's only going to get better. I think, hasn't played since the middle of last year on a new team. It's going to take some time. And last week against the Steelers, it was more of a slugfest, whereas the Eagles are going to score a lot of points in this game, and Kirk Cousins is going to have to swing it in order to keep up. So I feel good about Kyle Pitts this week. All right, so now let's move on to our crystal ball bust picks of the week. So we're going to let Marcus take this one first. Who you got?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be an entire team. Jacksonville Jaguars offense will be shut down this week by the Cleveland Browns. Trevor Lawrence is going to be in, I think, for a rough day. Dak only threw for, I think, around 170 yards last week. He had 1 passing touchdown. Dak did actually look good, but didn't really do much. I don't think Trevor Lawrence looked very good in week 1, and I don't think he's going to really do much either against this Cleveland defense. Might also be a little bit angry after how the offense performed for them last week. I also think ETN might be in for a rough day just because it's a tough matchup, but also because Tank Bixby might be getting more and more. If that becomes a split, then all of a sudden Travis Etienne's value is going to start to plummet, and he's going to have to get there on efficiency, which might be tough for him. And then all the Jacksonville wide receivers, just with all the corners that Cleveland's got, are going to be shut down. Interesting enough, not that I think I'm going to be starting Christian Kirk, but Cleveland, if they have a weak spot, it is the slot. If you're absolutely desperate, you could probably get away with starting Kirk. But just in general, for me, the entire Jacksonville offense is going to be a bust this week.
And mine is, I'm going back to Stroud again. I hate to talk about him again, but I stumbled upon that bet after I already wrote him in as my bust. Like I said, a lot of owners of Stroud probably don't have another option, and they're going to start him anyway. And he may end up okay, but I have him outside my top 10 this week. I just think he's going to be leaving fantasy owners wanting a little bit more.
And Derrick Henry is my crystal ball bust of the week. I am smashing the panic button on him after seeing last week 46 rushing yards on 13 attempts. We drafted this guy to be a bell cow. He's going in the second round of drafts. He is not paying off from what we've seen in week one. He used to get there on efficiency. He used to get there on a volume. He's not getting the volume. He had 11.5 fantasy points in DraftKings, getting 1 touchdown. If he has a game with 0 touchdowns, he's really, really having a crappy week. He had 0 catches in the passing game. He was getting passing game work before in the last couple of years. He's getting none now. Justice Hill gets 8 targets and 6 catches. So, other running backs on the team are kind of stealing some of his workload. And then John Harbaugh comes out and says it. He says, we didn't bring Derrick Henry in to get 30 carries a game. That's what he used to be. Now they said, we're not going to give him 30 carries a game. I don't think he's going to get there on efficiency, and now he's not going to get the volume. So I've smashed the panic button on Derrick Henry for the whole year and this week. But another player that stands out to me that I kind of like, that I mentioned earlier, is going to be like the offensive rookie of the year, is Xavier Worthy. Zach, what do you think of Xavier Worthy?
Xavier Worthy is my crystal ball bust of the week. I think he's an exceptionally talented player, and I think he takes this Chiefs offense to a new dynamic level. However, last week, he had a huge game, 2 touchdowns, like, our very own Marcus Zerlino predicted. Well done. However, taking a closer look at that, he only had 3 total touches and 3 targets, and that turned into 2 touchdowns. And one of those touchdowns, the 35-yard touchdown, was a play where Marlon Humphrey thought that he had help behind him, so he let him pass by him. He some sort of miscommunication on defense led to busted coverage. Xavier Worthy got an easy 35-yard touchdown, a catch that literally any wide receiver in the NFL would have made. So yes, that counts for fantasy points, but I don't really factor that in going forward. So I feel like he got a little lucky to get that fantasy output this week. A guy that maybe if you're desperate you can start, but he's ranked as wide receiver 3. I think that's really risky. Easily could have had like 3 fantasy points last week.
And let's go back to Derrick Henry for a little bit. And I think now is a great time to also transition to our crystal ball picks of the week, because I'm on the complete opposite side of the fence on Derrick Henry. And I think he's going to bounce back in a big way this week. So last week, the game script was completely against him. The Ravens were playing from behind the whole time, and their third down back is Justice Hill. So he was out there catching all the dump offs, and that's what they were doing in the fourth quarter. We barely saw Derrick Henry. I think this week it's going to be the complete opposite. They're going to completely control the game against the Raiders, and we're going to see a much larger dose of Derrick Henry. And they're going up against the team that J.K. Dobbins last week had 135 yards and a touchdown on just 10 carries. And I think Henry, I don't expect that from Henry. I don't think he's going to rip off any big runs here, but I also think he's got a pretty decent chance to score 2 touchdowns. And for just 1 touchdown, he is at minus 180 on DraftKings Sportsbook for 1 touchdown. So like that's a decent floor for me.
I'm with Marty on that one.
I'm siding with Marty over Eric as well.
I think Eric might regret that one.
So the panic button has been smashed in my department. I've got some Derrick Henry, so I hope you're right, Marty.
I don't think you can smash it until they play the Raiders.
Fair enough.
Then you can smash it. If he doesn't do good this week, you can smash it.
If J.K. Dobbins can do it.
And I will say, though, I will be very concerned about Derrick Henry if the Ravens control the game and we still don't see much Derrick Henry, and he still has a bad game, then like if he's not going to perform in this game, I don't think he's going to perform at all.
If he can't perform against the Raiders, I think he's done.
Who will have more fantasy points, Derrick Henry or Brock Bowers? Brock Bowers did have a good week 1.
Straight up for me, that'd be
Derrick
Henry, like times
running
3.
back. Yeah,
Well, times 2. Give me times 2.
we'll check back on this next week.
How about the crystal ball picks of the week?
Yeah, how about
who do we like?
Marty likes
I
Henry. Who do you like, Eric?
I'm tossing to Marcus.
I'll go first.
Yeah, let's go, Marcus.
Yeah, for me, I've already mentioned it in my best bets. For me, it's Jaden Daniels. I'll keep it short and sweet. I think he puts the league on notice with 4 total touchdowns against the Giants, and maybe even starts to say, hey, Philly, I might be coming for you for this division, Dallas too. Because I don't think Philly and Dallas is as strong as they let on in week 1. So I think this is Jaden Daniels starting it out. And is my crystal ball pick of the week.
4 touchdowns. That's what we're gonna go with, Marcus.
Yeah.
4 total touchdowns
4.
between passing and rushing.
I drafted him as my backup quarterback in 4 leagues, so I guess I should be starting him. 4 touchdowns. I want that.
Stolen from me.
It doesn't get easier than the Giants.
As somebody who's been an optimistic Washington fan for going on 20 years, I'm a bit skeptical of that, but I sure hope it happens. My crystal ball pick is Jamar Chase. I think the Bengals, they missed so much time in the offseason, so much preseason action as well. I think it's just going to take them a week or 2 to get things figured out. I feel like they underutilized Jamar Chase against the Patriots week 1, but now they're playing against the Kansas City Chiefs this week. They're going to have to score some points. It's going to force Burrow to throw the ball more, and I think they're going to funnel it Jamar's way. He's going to have a big game.
For me, there's a player that stands out in week 1, and he only had 9 completions. And when a quarterback only has 9 completions, you think, man, this guy's probably trash. But he ends up being a top 5 quarterback. Anthony Richardson, number 5 quarterback on the week, gets there with complete efficiency, hits deep ball after deep ball, rushing touchdown. I see him hopefully having no games the rest of this year with less than 9 completions, as long as he can stay healthy. So this might be his floor. Like, we knew he had real high ceiling potential. So if he can get to number 5 with only 9 completions, just imagine if he had 20 completions. We could see a real outlier, maybe consistency of being a top 5 quarterback from him over and over again. I will say we're moving on to week 2. We waited, we prepped for this. We prepped for the fantasy season. The fantasy season is here. We just finished week 1. I think it's in the books. We got to look ahead and just, give credit to the fantasy gods to keep these players healthy and uninjured, because things like that can just change the fantasy football season. Jason, what do we need to do to look forward to week 2?
To look forward to week 2. I actually thought of this while we were doing it, guys. I think what we should do is I should give like a bonus to the one I think is most accurate. So this week I'm gonna give my double ball to Anthony Richardson for the crystal ball pick, and I'm gonna give my my double ball bust to. It's tough, but I got to go with Zach, and I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy. So the double balls, they're up. But a reminder to everybody, hopefully this helps you for this week in fantasy. If you like what you see, smash that like button.
Let's do it.
Thanks for watching, and enjoy this exit video. Thanks, guys.